on Zoom. Does not look like we have any public comments besides on the new business stuff, so we'll get to that here shortly. So we will go to the open public hearings. So we're going to try this a little bit differently. I was just recently educated that we can do. I'm going to have, I guess Warren's going to do his presentation, and then we'll go to comments.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is have my presentation, let the public comment, and then once you close the public hearing, when you get to new business, then you can recognize the owner applicant, so they have time to speak.
All right, so we will go to the, I guess, Warren's your presentation on Sunset Ridge.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the project name is actually it's basically a concept plan for project in Blanco River Ranch. I'm going to go ahead and just show you what the picture is. I'm going to scroll here, show so you kind of see what we're trying to do here. Blanco River Ranch is actually an extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's not in the city. So what our responsibility with staff and then planning commission and council responsibility to do is actually review the concept plan and then to also discuss any variances or anything that's attached to it. So I'll go ahead and concept plan for Blanco River Ranch consists of 627 acres, which 63 lots are shown with right-of-way frontage and 21 lots that are indicated as future residential. This project will have vineyards, and tasting rooms, event center, rentals, and other commercial areas that make up 128 acres of the non-residential development. Property is located at Ranch Road 165. And it's basically, as you said, it's near Sunset Ridge on the north end, and it is right on the edge of the Blanco city limits line. The main access to Blanco River Ranch will come from a main roadway, which is this here, that will go to 165. Concept plan has mostly 5-acre lots, residential lots, which are shown in yellow, that will be served by well and septic. The plan also has 21 future lots, which is 5 and 5. I think there's 11. The concept plan is basically considered a preliminary plat, except for the areas that are future. So everything else could come back as a final plat, but these sections would have to come back as a possibly preliminary plat, where they may be able to, if they're not dedicating any easements or road driveway, may be able to come in as administrative. So I want to explain what the responsibility is here. Since it's an ETJ, it's just platting and drainage. It is not permitting. So we have no permitting responsibilities for this project. So, but the reason why we're actually here today, I want to be clear about this, is there is a variance requested. So in our water quality ordinance, in the drainage section, essentially, you have to have what we call unflooded access. You can't have a roadway that's in the 100-year flood line. I think part of the issue is, I believe, a portion of 165 and basically a portion of this of their property is in the floodplain. So it would make it very difficult to build outside the floodplain. Now, there's a lot of different things you could do. You might be able to have a higher bridge, but from most standpoints, because it goes down at 165, and there's a little, they have currently a small, not really bridge, but just a water crossing that would actually create the need for a national bridge. So the developer's asking for a variance because they want to have an improved water crossing that still does happen within the 100-year floodplain. And what I think a lot of you have heard about is there has to be a secondary access that is required or is needed if they're going to get a variance to not still be in the 100-year floodplain. The reason for that is, for example, in 2015, you had a flood that created a lot of issues. It was more than a 100-year flood event. But if you only have one way in and one way out, then the folks that are here, if you can't get through there, you have to have secondary access. Which is why, as a city, we looked at requiring a secondary access if this developer were to get a variance, not to have, not to basically have a variance. For a variance to be granted, or for us to even consider it, they'd have to have secondary access, unless they want to totally elevate out of the flood. Okay. Now, let's talk about what we were supposed to do as far as notification. So we notified in the newspaper, like I said, it's 15 days ahead of time. And we're required to do 200 feet notification for where the variance actually takes place. So it wasn't for the entire project, it's actually down here. The variance is here. That's actually where you actually have the flooded access. Up here somewhere, there probably isn't flooded access. And then the secondary accesses, which is what is the developer is proposing, would not be flooded at all as well. So I'll let you know, this is all with ETJ. The city limit line does a weird thing where there's part of it's in the city, part of it's not. But and the developer explained later on where they come from as far as getting that secondary access. But this property, my understanding, this property provides a secondary access.
Where we can't see anything as far as.
I don't know what you're pointing to.
Yeah, we can't see a pointer at all.
Can we use your? This is the second, is the flooded access
Of 165.
off 165 that he's referring to. This is the unflooded access.
Right.
Okay. These are the two references. Warren is mentioning this as the variance point.
Right. Yeah. Which is required 200 foot around that access point.
Now to yours.
Okay, so that is really, that's really the whole gist to this development. And what I would do is, after everybody's spoken and when we get to the actual section, then we'll actually talk about the recommendation. For now, that gives everybody that's going to speak and you kind of an understanding of what the project is, and to recap it. We're asking for a variance for that primary access point to allow the flooded access, which is within the 100-year floodplain, and there's a secondary access off the Sunset Ridge that goes 6 off. Questions to me before you open the public hearing?
No, I think we might have questions later, but I like okay, so we will open the public hearing, and we're going to start with doing just on 1566 Sunset Ridge. It looks like about 3 people that signed up for that one. I am so sorry, I cannot quite get this one. It's C.
Right.
How do you spell it, sir?
COLIN.
You mean we can do like this? And that's what they immediately just started doing.
Thank you. If you want to come up to.
I'm not sure exactly what's obviously approved here, but
No,
may I
it's not
point
good.
on this?
What the hell, y'all?
Right.
I own all of this property here, and this road is an access for 1, 2, 3 people, and Wayman Lightfoot who lives here. Wayman and I and one other paid for this road to be paved all the way from 281 all the way around, with the understanding that there were very few people using it. Number one, it's not very wide. It's not full grade asphalt. It's a chip and seal. And there's not room without getting off on either Wayman's property or mine to allow another car to pass. But we very rarely have to pass 2 cars. There's not enough people in there. My concern and our neighbors' concern is that we start with this kind of crowd. And the shortest way to town or the shortest way north is going to be right through here. And while the developer, in my perspective, says, oh no, only on emergency, what's an emergency? And who's going to put a gate up there to stop the non-emergent getting high traffic on this road? They'll wear this road out in no time. And Wayne and I, and the question I had, I only got a minute like that, certainly I'll have it. We got a notification and we have a lot of neighbors, all from down here and down here, that want to come. But I got a last minute notice that it was changed to today. Is that illegal? We change, I have the picture here of the newspaper article that said the 10th. And
It has a second and
The
a
Kansas City Council.
and the second was the P and Z. They're both.
this is
in there.
P and Z.
Yeah.
This said, the P and Z notice was October the 10th, 2023 at 6 o'clock.
I think they're just basically all the same paragraph. It's all
Almost.
Yeah, they're all
Two
squeezed
things.
together.
Yeah, so you've got, public notice, yeah, and then just right below it.
I missed that.
But I think the main thing that we were discussing is, from your standpoint, you're saying you would want them to primarily use this.
I don't want them to use this at all.
No,
Because
it's a
there's no-
private road.
Yeah,
It's a
there's no
private.
That's what I
control.
wanted to ask, could we clarify that, who owns that
I
road?
own this road along with Wayman, and she has some.
Mercy Westcomb?
Amelia has
Okay.
some. Wayman couldn't be here because
Y'all are
we
the
thought it was short notice. And 3 of us paid for the Storm Road. Maybe one of the better roads in Blanco. I'm taking my time, but as neighbors, we have a real concern about that.
And we'll address that concern. All right, so the next person, we're going to Cornelia.
I have the same concern because that variance would come, that road at 1566 is alongside my property. All of a sudden, because he would have you, all these other people using that road, this has become part of, on top of my property, and that road is not wide enough for 2 cars. It just isn't, and you're gonna have late night traffic. You're gonna have people that have, if he's doing a wedding venue and all this other stuff, that's gonna cause a real issue with all of that. That whole road is just kind of, it's a private road. So, this whole scenario, I'm just getting into the road issue. I could get into the other. But my biggest concern is about the water that he wants to use to build all these houses and big wells. That's something, but I've said,
No, so unfortunately, that's not something that we have any
I know.
overview on. Okay, thank you, Cornelia. Then I've got one more, Mike. Etheridge.
Your friend Mike lived.
All right.
Mike purchased properties. Your friend lived.
Bridge that washed down. And I'm right across the road too. I have no problem in using that right there. I think it'd be an asset to the town. Now, I understand where people work, that road. I don't know what their plans are on that. But you might find out about that.
So can you go up there and show where you're running this?
She's across from the 65.
So,
Right there.
Yes, sir.
I don't hear all the way to Bridge, also right here, all that, it's been that family since 1914. So I have no problems with what he does on his.
Thank you.
And he would be an asset to the town, I know that. Thank you, that's what I
All right, so Warren, your topic, then we go to the next special use permit.
But yeah, we go to the next, public hearing.
Okay, so we will go to the next public hearing. So Warren, give a presentation that'll be on 411 8th Street on the, special use permit for multifamily. All right.
This is a lot more simple. I'll do this quickly.
And now we know.
I know y'all have been here and I appreciate it. So,
You're talking at that microphone.
see if I can get a little better.
You want to close to a mic and it's just.
This property on East Street, that currently has one multifamily unit, like a duplex. And then he has, I believe, 16, mini storage units. And what we would like to do is convert those mini storage units to 3 multifamily units. Let me see if I have a look at our pictures of where that is. So, here's 8th Street.
We're all bad.
Kind
It's all right.
Isn't there a number on?
Cancel because everybody has been notified.
Right there.
of, right, yeah, there it is.
I'm gonna zoom in.
Oh, down from the liquor store on that
Yes,
side.
yes,
street.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll get a little
There you go.
bit tighter. There we go.
Everybody knows.
So, 411. 411 8th Street, essentially, the reason
I
why
said, hey, talk to her real quick.
it has a
Yeah.
special use permit to allow, special use permit to allow multifamily in the R5 district is because it is allowed as a special use. And we did want to do rezone because as you heard from Brandon earlier, that would be a slot.
Oh, good.
So this is a pretty simple setup for that. So, if any applicant, excuse me, if any, if you want to open the public hearing now.
Can I just ask you a question? So there's currently a duplex. They're gonna convert the, public storage to 3 units, so the property will end up with 5 multifamily,
Correct.
long-term rental units.
So instead of having 2 units and 16 mini storage, there will be 5 total, 2. The picture is, that's kind of what it will look.
So it'll no longer be storage, you're saying,
It will no longer
It's
be
gonna be-
storage,
residential?
it'll become residential,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Okay, so it looks like the only person I had set up for this was Sam, but I think.
I'm just speaking in the affirmative, so. But I can speak?
Well, no, I would just make sure you're the one submitting it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk to you here in a little bit when we get into the new business. So we will close the public hearing. We will get into our, old business. So we've got the approval of the minutes for August 7th. Yeah, I thought they were good to me too. Did anybody else say anything they want to talk about?
Oh,
We have a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from the August 7th meeting.
All fair? All right. So the last thing on old business is, just discussing, if y'all had a chance to meet, discuss any more outside of our stuff.
I tried to get everybody together and there was just by email. And so now I've requested cell phone numbers, which I guess I could get from Lori, start a group text so that we can communicate, or we're not communicating. But I did print out the Wimberley and I have Blanco, and I was just kind of going through to compare and get ideas. And then the other person that sent anything to me with the land, if y'all had any concerns about the sign ordinances or opinions, whatever, that you wanted us to look at, email them to me, and I'll be sure that the committee gets it.
Okay, I have a list of stuff. Can
And I
hand it
need
to-
yours, I don't have yours. Yeah.
I handed it to one of y'all, but I will. Okay. All right, so we will move away from.
Brandon, you wanna go, I hold up old business item number one, approval of the.
That was already approved last. It just somehow made it onto this agenda. All right, so now we will get into new business. So the first thing we're gonna go through, is discussion about changing our planning and zoning meeting time from 6:30 to 6. I think if it was more in line with city council, it would make more sense to people. I know we used to meet there for a while when I first started. Thoughts?
Yeah, but I can leave early.
So do we want to do that? If so, we need a motion.
I'm gonna change the meeting time.
Okay. Second.
I second.
All right, all in favor? All right, perfect. That makes it real simple. All right, so now we'll get into consideration, discussion, take possible action on the variance for 1566 Sunset Ridge. So now I guess we will recognize the applicant to speak if you would like to discuss the project with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jake Palmer, and I am the developer along with my son, Greg Palmer. If I could give a brief history of how this all came about, back in 2015, purchased property that starts at the river and goes all the way back to the north corner. Our intent was to develop the area along the river in a
Yes.
series of commercial projects, an event center, a winery, a restaurant, and then further to the north, we were going to develop it in Manchester, 5-acre tracts. This was in 2015. We had a property that was covered with lease to the city, and they used these areas right here to water sprinklers, their effluent water, for the wastewater. At the end of the lease, 2018, we indicated that we wanted to discontinue that lease. We wanted to plant vineyards and start our development. I thought that was easy. Here it is, 2023, and we're still wrestling with the city on wastewater.
You're both.
Problems, there's continues to overflow on our properties. We're trying to work it out. The city's trying to work it out. We're trying to get TCEQ to allow a discharge pipeline, which we've already granted the city an easement to run an underground pipe. We've already agreed to pay for 50% of that underground pipe, just to get that wastewater off of our property. And we even came and purchased an 14-acre tract so that easement could go all the way down the river. And basically, I'm not in favor of discharging in the river, but if it's going to go in the river, I want it away from our commercial development. Sorry, but it still will go down in the river. But that's been going on for years now. And right now, that wastewater goes right into an empty, like a river from us when it's discharged. Now, we went to the city and tried to get a permit for this, and the city said, we've adopted the City of Austin building code. And that code says, I'm not here to do anything.
Oh, he's on the other side of the stop sign, huh?
That code says if you're developing internal street systems within your project, you must connect to a public street, which is 165, but out of a flood zone. But we've got a low water bridge crossing that's been there for 60, 70 years. And our intent was to widen
Oh, I'm
that,
going the wrong way.
but keep it at the same level so it doesn't back up any additional water that the current one backs up. The city said, this is a flood zone. You gotta be out of flood zone. So we looked into the idea of a $4 million bridge that would start back here out of the flood zone and go across that river to 165. Problem is, 165 itself is in a flood zone. So what's the purpose of building a $4 million bridge if you're going back into a flood zone? So we studied the idea of what about finding a secondary access out of the development? And we talked with every neighbor we could find along Sunset Ridge on our western boundary. And there's a movement afoot, nobody wanted to grant an easement or an access to Sunset Ridge. So what I was forced to do to make this, and you might ask, why don't I go down along Heimer Road on my east side, a little bit farther. Well, Heimer Road empties down to the old washout bridge area. And that's in the flood zone, so it doesn't do me any good going out that way. So the only way to avoid a $4 million bridge was to purchase this 70-acre tract that I purchased last summer, last July. And the reason we purchased it is it has access to Sunset Ridge. I didn't purchase it until I got assurance from the city that that would suffice being able to get a variance down here, or at least they would recommend that to planning, zoning, and the staff. And I am in the ETJ, so I'll have the right to look this over for this. So that's why we did it. I will tell you this, I've made a few mistakes in my development career. I might just say that I served on the committee, the comprehensive planning committee for 2 years in the city of Mount Allen, where I'm from. I haven't lived down there in 18 years, but they asked me to serve on, so I know exactly what y'all are going through with this comprehensive plan. It's served on zoning board of adjustments for 14 years. So I don't know. But I would not have purchased this 70 acres if I didn't have a clear understanding and a title company with a commitment ensuring that I've got the right to use this road system. And I'm not trying to use it as a primer. I want people to come through here because we're developing this, we're landscaping it. It runs along the creek. It's going to be a beautiful way to get back to these lots. This is only an afterthought. But I know what Mr. Horwitz said. Some of these people might think that's the quickest way to get down to the liquor store, and they're going to buy there. It could happen, but let me just explain. This was not our intent. Our intent was to try to get a variance, which y'all have the right to provide on this with this secondary access. And I've got a title commitment that says we can use it for what we want to use it for. And I brought that information with me. I'm not trying to railroad something over on my neighbors. I've got neighbors that don't even want to shake hands with me right now. We're trying to work together, but I've got to be able to access this property. And I wouldn't be here if I wasn't told that you've got to have a way to get out of here. And I don't want to get out of here. So,
Is that bottom 72 acres you said?
yes,
Is that Copper's old property?
it's Copper's old property.
Why don't you sell that for $4 million and build a $4 million bridge? It's all done.
That's into
The $4 million bridge, it won't work according to the city because it ends up in the floodplain. So they said they will not approve that bridge.
Well, they until 8 or 9.
And whose land
Oh, no.
between your recently purchased property to get you to 281? Who owns that, do you know?
Bob and Betty Pollock. That's close to it.
So, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but if you have a private easement, I mean, in my mind, the private easement would be among the landowners of that private easement to grant you access. So whether the title company ensured that you have an easement, there's still usually, depending on what the private easement says, there are restrictions on that easement. So I do not know what those restrictions are, what the private road agreement is. So, I mean, I don't know what to say
I'm
about
an
it.
attorney.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what to tell you about the
I can tell you what it
private.
says, But I brought copies of it.
Yeah,
I don't think I'll let my son address that.
Did the title commitment say though, that you can build, you know, homes up there in commercial in this road?
It's not commercial, back in the.
I understand, but you're connecting the property. This is gonna be, I know how neighborhoods go, you know, Santa Rita Ranch and Liberty Hill.
So you feel like the folks down here, rather than exit on Heimer or exit across the bridge, would rather come?
Absolutely. they would.
if you leave it open.
Anyone over
If it's
there is gonna
open.
exit through that. 100%.
Because two, there's gonna be families there, so that's the quickest way to the elementary school, it's the quickest way to the high school, games,
It's safer.
liquor
Not
store.
165.
I would say all your residential folks are gonna travel that way if that's open to them and not
Yes.
like a shut gate for
It
emergency.
is. They'll tell me
Because they're not gonna wanna travel through all the.
what time it was, and I'll look at the signs.
Okay.
Street. Like, I would say all your residential would wanna travel that direction, if that direction is an open access point for them.
Warren, is that possible to have a located exactly in emergency access? Basically, of course, if it is the other one, unless they're being.
So when we actually spoke to the farmers, we explained from an engineering standpoint that you wanted a secondary access, but it could be an emergency access. Staff would be still in favor of granting the variance if that was just an emergency access, which hasn't been crashing. So if that was something both the developer and you as a body wanted to discuss, that could be added as a condition of the crash gate.
But that's a private easement agreement, it doesn't matter what we grant, it's gonna be up to what that usage is for them.
This body is not in the business of deciding
Okay,
this potential private dispute.
Yeah.
Not your job. And the city's kind of good at taking that liability with respect to these landowners disputes. So if you want to have you've got a representation from the applicant in public that he's got access with a report of the title company. Now, assuming you're entitled to look at that document and assume the truth of it and act accordingly with whatever other conditions you want, emergency, et cetera, and let it play out as it plays out. Or if you choose, no, you're not satisfied with that, you don't want to, it's up to you to grant the variance or I'll recommend it. But not to, it cannot be the reason for that cannot be, oh, we've decided a private land dispute. No. It can be for what other legitimate reasons.
Golden's here.
Okay.
It can be conditional.
Gold.
So if you want to place a condition, then y'all can certainly discuss that about the conditions of that existing.
It'll keep going until we open the door.
Excuse me, can I point out that this land has that same title to be able to use this road as well. And so if you place any kind of a restriction on these folks, I don't know how you can place restriction on this property too, so.
so this is really a county development, correct?
Yes.
Blanco County, so what is Blanco County gonna do for him? Because they're gonna get the revenue off all this, what have they offered to do for you to be able to make you be able to have that development? You would think they would partner to plan development.
So I'm not really talking to the county about this at all, just because the county told us that if we're in the ETJ, they are not on this.
You have an agreement that's been approved by council between the city and the county. anything in the ETJ is platted by us.
Okay.
That's how we.
So planning and drainage are reviewed by the city,
Then
but not the permit.
my other question is the two zones that are future residential that don't appear to fit the 5 acres for a well.
Okay.
Like what's gonna go in those two zones or what's the future concept plan? Are those gonna become like apartment complexes?
No,
or what
no.
would go in those? Okay, I just wondering how many people when we're talking about the road.
I think it listed on here, we could potentially have 4 more on this side and 6 more lots
Okay,
on this side. The reason why we didn't show it is because we don't know how much farther we're gonna go with the building and how much farther down this direction we're gonna go with the residential, so we kind of left it undecided.
How wide is Sunset?
The application said that Blanco County and TxDOT both approved access by 165. Do you have that documentation?
I have not received that documentation.
Well, I mean, that's what the application, I'm just reading it.
The only thing that Blanco County and TxDOT who've been to the site have said, they didn't have a problem with the bridge and the existing curb cut that's already on 165. So I can't really say that they have approved it, but they've been asked and they've come to the site and they looked at it and they said, we don't have a problem. But
But
that's
they
as
have
far
no
as.
jurisdiction on the planet. They're not commenting on the planet.
I'm not talking about the
Right.
plan. I'm talking about the access.
Well, but we are, the city is talking about planning in connection with that access. Their comment is simply on utility of that roadway, that's all. They're not commenting on the plat itself.
but are we only talking about the access and sunset? Or are you asking us to also approve that concept plan additionally? Because you keep saying plating, so are we only talking about the roads?
It's a preliminary plat.
So we are looking at all of
Yes,
the
the
plating of
concept
the
plan
concept.
With a
plan.
variance.
Okay, which is concept plan.
Yeah, and the variance is that an easement road or is that, do you own that?
We own that.
The
We own
water
the
crossing.
the water crossing currently, yes,
So you own 165.
we do.
And to answer your question, at final plat, all of these things will be required, to make sure that they have access to 165. And then we'll talk about it with the staff's recommendation, but everything has to be completed at final plat. Right now, we're just looking at it. This is basically concept plan.
So I really like this development plan. I think it would be a huge asset to Blanco. And just like any new development coming in, there's always going to be some issues, and that's why we're here to work through them. When I read the paperwork, I was under the impression that it was going to be for emergency only. I visualized what I've seen, I guess, in San Antonio, where you have a gate and the fire department has access to opening that gate if an emergency is in order, and that's what I would chose as a condition for this.
Can I respond to that? And this might be a way to resolve it. I don't mind an emergency gate placed here that allows an emergency exit at that gate. What I don't want to see is the existing road system restricted to this project right here or this land right here. I'd like you to say they can continue using the way they purchased it and the way they have a title agreement that allows them to. And if we need to put a restriction on the rest of the subdivision, then I don't mind.
So what is your definition of an emergency exit? Because that's telling me anybody can go out.
I'm gonna let Warren.
We're talking about I believe Julie's talking about
Our ambulance.
a gate so those people don't exit.
Right.
In other
So,
words, like, that's not just gonna be where they can pull up, swipe their card, it says emergency exit, only, but they still go through.
sorry, somebody, this, an emergency access would have a gate and it would be what we call a crash gate. So if if, let's say for some reason. they-
I'm getting so bored with this.
So he would
Why don't we
actually.
go on into our stuff? Looks like they want to run people out.
Let's do it.
Place right there, so the future possible 13 homes on the ranch
It's too much.
could access as it was purchased, but the rest of the property would not. So we wouldn't, nothing from the commercial, nothing from 61 lots up here could actually.
Or the commercial on the.
Yes.
Now, is that something that later, to say, because you may want to do something completely different with that and not build a bunch of houses there. And, yeah, and so, could there be some verbiage that when he did develop that, that it's possible that that gate could move? The emergency gate?
Well, he doesn't want to.
Well, if right now he doesn't want to because he wants to be able to access it because there's not gonna be homes on it. Just the freedom to enjoy his property.
In fact, I've got restrictions that were on the property when I purchased it. That limit,
Let me answer part of this question though. If that's a future residential, and let's say you decide to do something other than that, he's gonna have to come back to this body to get a new concept plan, because that would be changing the use.
Right.
So that would be addressed there.
So, to my understanding, basically, the main conversation that we're having today is, I know there's a dispute on the road, and it's not our purview to get involved in that. But the idea is, do we do a variance on 165? Get all of these people to leave through there, or have some of them choose to go through here, and if we can put into place some sort of a gate that forces them to use the other road, that alleviates any traffic on that road, and then we can talk about that development when that comes forward.
Yes, we could do that.
I mean, the other option is if we don't allow the variance, then they just use the back road.
No, if you don't grant the variance, they'll have to
can't.
do this bridge that will, like you said,
the owner.
the owners, I guess.
Then they'd still have that back road that they use.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd be, yes, the answer is yes. If you deny that variance, that back road would still be.
So by doing the variance and putting in an emergency gate, it at least alleviates the traffic going through the neighborhood as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that'd be preferable, yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, he already has the right to use this secondary exit or whatever he wants. He's only asking for the variance to do the development because his entrance and exit cannot be in the floodplain. So
That's
from
correct.
what I'm hearing is he has all day long the right to build homes back here and use that as an entrance to his neighborhood.
The 70 acres does,
Well, that's what he's saying. I mean, I've verified that.
not the whole road, it's just the 70 acres. That's
Yeah.
right.
We don't know if he has a right to use the
But
road at
the
all, because
attorney
it's
says that
private.
that's not our.
But that's not what we're,
Well-
even if we give him the variance, yeah. Yes, it is. So
Well,
even if we give him
according
the
to
variance,
Frank's
there's-
definition of our job is to make sure the well-being of all the citizens, the future ones that'll be in that neighborhood, have a safe exit out. Have the proper utilities. They're not pulling water from other people to get their utilities, so make sure we're not leaving, the other existing community there. I think it's a great idea that he's allowed to build homes there, but there is issues that concern that property is not now just married to that 72 acres because he bought that as a separate parcel. That is part of that Sunset Ridge community that's been there for 100+ years, I'm assuming. So it's more than just approving the variance and saying, we don't care that your guys will be trapped in the neighborhood without secondary access when it does flood every 100 years. But for all the pools that are going to try to be crossing that, it's not a bridge. I guarantee you're going to have some issues there when it is flooded. So we're looking for the safety, not just now, it can be able to safely get in and out and construct it, but also how's it going to impact everyone else down the line.
It's just real quick, one comment. Sorry, I don't want to make it.
My name is Marcy Westcott. I live at 1523 Sunset Ridge. I apologize if I'm out of
What's your
order.
name again?
Marcy Westcott.
You wanna walk up front and.
So is that GOT?
COTT. WEST. So this is all well and good that Mr. Palmer gets to stand up here and make this presentation about his grand plans. I hope this is a big success for him, but how about those of us who live on Sunset Ridge? How can we make a presentation about why we oppose this? There are several of us who live back on Sunset Ridge. This would create a nightmare that you can't imagine. Now, he can talk about emergencies. We can talk about having gates that we lock. I promise you, that is not going to be solving the issue. We have noise, we have traffic, we have maintenance issues, we have people using it at who knows what hours of the night. We all lived there so that we could get away from the subdivisions, and now you're forcing one down our throats.
Just to clarify, and I understand your frustration, but with it being in the ETJ, that's not, the development itself isn't something that we have any control over.
But you do have authorization to make this variance, and we're opposed to that. This is purely for his financial interest. We benefit in no way from this. None of us benefit from this. So does that matter?
Absolutely.
I hope so. All of us back there have lived there 15, 20 years. This was not in our grand plan. This is not why we bought properties. And again, I wish him well, but this is a problem for us. And we deserve some consideration. We deserve to be able to speak to you on why we oppose this and the problems that you'd be asking us to live with.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Can I make one comment and I'll shut up?
Sorry, guys, we're in a closed meeting. I'm trying to give everybody time, but. Okay. So, what other discussion I'll have, Warren? What do you have?
Yeah, I can give you the recommendation. Development provide residences and economic development in Blanford County, but will not directly affect the city of Blanco or the economics. The event center and winery may provide an option for Blanford area residents, and there may be some indirect traffic in the project. Concept plan meets all the requirements with the variance is approved. So the recommendation is that staff recommends for P&Z to recommend approval to the city council for the concept plan and variance with the following condition, along with the normal required documents for final plat, following required. A floodplain study, providing there are no impacts, no rise in under-year flood surface elevation to the floodplain proposed improvements. That would be required of final plat, as well as if you want to, as a commission, look at restrictions on, as we discussed, on Sunset Ridge, you can do that as well. I will mention one thing though. I think someone asked this. If the variance is not approved, the bridge would have to be built, but that does not actually, you can't put a restriction on Sunset Ridge without the variance. So that's how you're able to restrict it.
That was what I was curious about.
I have a question about the roads, width. Is that a traveling road that all of a sudden now that's going to become a city road? Like what's happening with that road if all these people are traveling on it? Because I have been back there and it is sort of just a one-lane road. So how do you deal with that part of the road safety?
So when we first talked to the farmers about this, my suggestion had been making that an emergency access.
Only.
But that was not, when we discussed this and we go back and forth, secondary would be fine, but that would be actually what administration prefers, is make that emergency access only. And after discussing it back and forth, probably that future development should be allowed to have that access. But correct, the rest of it, if that is your purview to restrict that access.
Let me ask you this.
Factually, I mentioned, of course, factually, correct me if I'm wrong, you're representing to the commission that you have, when you bought that property, that property enjoyed the benefits of the roadway, correct?
Correct.
So now what you're asking subject to all these discussions about emergency access, you're asking that the other property enjoy that benefit. So in reaction to this emergency discussion, you're suggesting that emergency gate be placed at that access point between the developed lots and the future residential. So the future residential still enjoys the routing that you represent you have now. Is that right?
That's what I'm saying, listening to my neighbors here.
I just wanted
That's right. That's something that we'd be willing to do.
I thought you could subdivide without 60-foot wide road.
Just to make it.
You're gonna have to address that to Warren.
You can't subdivide without
No, this is a secondary
Hang
one.
on, no, let's get back to this, please. I understand the frustration here.
If we don't approve this variance with the condition of a gate, it does potentially offer less protection for the citizens of Sunset Ridge, because if he finds access, builds a bridge, gets that developed, or gets that road to 165, he could theoretically, people could just come in and out of Sunset Ridge regardless.
That's correct.
So it's important, this gate and this variance protects the people in
It does.
Sunset Ridge more than anything else
No,
that we
it
can do.
doesn't.
Yes, it
Well,
does.
well, hang on, let me clarify exactly what she's saying. So if we don't do the variance, he builds a bridge, builds a subdivision, everything's the same. The only thing is we have no suggestion or no control over the access to Sunset Ridge. But if we do the variance, then we do have some control of that.
Yes, if he built the bridge, there'd be no reason for a variance, and then you could have no protection for people not driving on, other than maybe a legal issue, but that would not be something the city would get
You
involved.
said the bridge still wouldn't comply.
No,
If they comply, then
no, the variance is so he doesn't have to build a bridge, but because of that, he has to have a secondary access.
yes, sir.
So therefore, if we say no variance, he does not have access from Sunset, only the 72 acres does, unless there's something else going on there. Therefore, he is required to go through that 165 bridge access. So it is all hinged on the variance, and then the gate would be a high recommendation. The least we can do to protect the citizens of said bridge.
Right, well, yes.
Can I make one comment? I will keep quiet.
Wait, what's your name?
Colin Paul, that's- This is a one-person residence, as you refer to the residence.
That have the
But
right to be.
he has already changed what was originally there
Right.
for size of the plot, so that he can put a development just like this here. And he has first option on this land, and Mr. Wilson is 87, not expecting to live, he has heart failure. He has option this land. That means that we're gonna have a development here, and here. And that's gonna, it's water.
So
Can I think just a second?